My name is Harper Reed. I am 34 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban town in the United States. For 13 years, my family acted like I did not exist. They cut me off because I refused to be their scapegoat anymore. I built a life alone. I built a business alone. Finally, I bought my own house alone. I spent my first night in that house sleeping on the floor, eating leftover pastries. It was quiet, it was peaceful, it was mine. The very next morning, a car pulled into my driveway. My mother and my sister, Maya, stepped out. They were dragging heavy suitcases. They did not knock. They just walked up the steps like they owned the place. My mother didn't say hello. She didn't say congratulations. She just pointed at the big window upstairs. "We are moving in," she said firmly. "Maya gets the master bedroom. You can take the small one in the back." Maya stood there and smirked. She looked at me like I was still the little girl she could bully. She thought nothing had changed. She thought I was still the daughter who would give up everything just to make them happy. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just smiled. Because last night, before I unlocked the front door, I made sure they could never take this from me. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment where you're watching from. My name is Harper Reed. I am 34 years old. To understand why my mother and sister standing on my doorstep was so absurd, you have to understand how I grew up. I was the oldest daughter. In some families, that is just birth order. In my family, it was a job title. From the time I was 7 years old, I understood my role. My role was to make things easier for my parents. My role was to be invisible until I was needed, and then to be indispensable. My sister, Maya, was born when I was 5. She was different from the moment she arrived. She cried more. She needed more holding. My parents were obsessed with her. They looked at her like she was a piece of very expensive glass that might shatter if the wind blew too hard. I was not glass. I was plastic. Durable, functional. Easily replaced if broken, but I wasn't supposed to break. By the time I was 10, my daily routine was set in stone. I woke up first. I made my own breakfast. Usually toast, because it was quiet and didn't make a mess. Then I laid out Maya's clothes for school. If I picked the wrong color, Maya would cry and Mom would sigh at me, a heavy, disappointed sigh. So I learned to pick the right colors. I packed 2 lunches, one for me, one for Maya. Mine was simple. Maya's had to have the crusts cut off the sandwich, and the fruit had to be sliced just right, or she wouldn't eat it. After school, I walked Maya home. I made sure she did her homework. If she didn't understand a math problem, she would throw her pencil across the room and scream. My mother would run in from the other room. "Harper, what are you doing to her? Can't you see she is stressed? Explain it better." It was always my fault the math was hard. It was always my job to fix Maya's frustration. While Maya watched cartoons to calm down, I started chores. I folded the laundry. I emptied the dishwasher. I peeled potatoes for dinner. My parents both worked and they came home tired. I wanted them to be happy. I thought if the house was clean and dinner was started, they would smile at me. They would notice me. Sometimes they did say thank you. But usually, they just seemed relieved they didn't have to do it. It wasn't praise. It was just an expectation met. Maya had no chores. If my father asked her to take out the trash, my mother would intervene. "Oh honey, don't make her do that. She has ballet practice later. She needs her rest. Harper can do it." Harper can do it. That was the motto of our house. If Mom had a headache, I brought her aspirin and kept the house quiet. If Dad had a bad day at work, I made sure dinner was on time and Maya didn't bother him. I was the emotional buffer. I absorbed the stress in the house so it wouldn't touch Maya. I remember one summer when I was 14. I wanted to go to a sleepaway camp for a week. I had saved up babysitting money to pay for half of it. I presented the plan to my parents at dinner. My father looked interested, but my mother immediately looked worried. "But who will watch Maya in the afternoons?" she asked. "Maya is 9, I said quietly. "She can watch TV for an hour until you get home." My mother shook her head violently. "Absolutely not. She gets scared alone. And who will help me with the canning next week?" "No, Harper. It's just not a good time. Maybe next year." Next year never came. I used my camp money to buy school clothes for Maya because Mom said money was tight. I learned a very important lesson during those years. Needs were a liability. Having wants made you difficult. If I wanted attention, I was selfish. If I needed help, I was incompetent. Maya needed everything. She needed help getting dressed. She needed help with friends. She needed constant reassurance that she was pretty and smart. My parents poured their energy into her like water into a leaky bucket. It was never enough. To balance the scales, I decided to need nothing. I didn't ask for new clothes. I wore my jeans until the knees tore. I didn't ask for help with my homework. I stayed up until midnight figuring it out myself. I didn't share my feelings. If I was sad, I went to my room and read a book. I became very quiet. I thought that by being low maintenance, I was being a good daughter. I thought that eventually, they would see how hard I was trying and appreciate me. I didn't realize then that I was just training them. I was teaching them that my feelings didn't matter. I was teaching them that Harper could handle anything, so they never had to worry about me. Maya was the main character in our family movie. My parents were the supporting cast. And I was the stagehand, moving the props around in the dark, making sure the spotlight stayed on her. It was exhausting. I was tired all the time. But I kept going because that was my job. I was the responsible one. I was the strong one. I didn't know yet that strength is just another word for how much pain you can carry before you break. As I got older, the dynamic shifted from just doing chores to taking blame. It wasn't enough that I did the work. I also had to absorb Maya's mistakes. In our house, facts were not important. Feelings were important. Specifically, Maya's feelings. If Maya felt sad, someone had to be punished to make her feel better. That someone was usually me. The clearest memory I have of this started on a Tuesday evening. I was 16. Maya was 11. My father had left his wallet on the kitchen counter. He always did this. It was a brown leather wallet, stuffed with receipts and cash. I was in the kitchen making spaghetti for dinner. Maya was sitting at the table, supposedly doing homework, but mostly doodling in her notebook. Dad came in, grabbed his wallet, and left for the hardware store. 20 minutes later, he was back. He stormed into the kitchen. His face was red. "Where is the money?" he demanded. His voice was loud. I turned down the stove. "What money, Dad? I had $80 cash in my wallet when I put it on this counter. I went to the store, opened it up, and there is only a $20. $60 is gone." He looked straight at me. My stomach dropped. I knew that look. It was the look that said I was already guilty. "I didn't touch your wallet," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've been cooking." "Well, it didn't just walk away, Harper." My mother walked in, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" Dad explained the missing $60. My mother's eyes instantly shifted to me. "Harper," she said, her voice dropping to that disappointed tone I hated. "Did you need money for something? You know you just have to ask. Stealing is wrong." I felt my face get hot. "I didn't steal anything, Mom. I don't need money. I have my babysitting cash upstairs." Then Maya spoke up from the table. Her voice was small and shaky. "I saw Harper near the wallet," she whispered. I spun around to look at her. "What?" "Maya, that is a lie. You've been sitting right there." Maya's lips started to tremble. Tears welled up in her big brown eyes. "She was looking at it, Mommy, when you went to the bathroom." The performance had begun. My mother rushed to Maya and wrapped her arms around her. "Oh, sweetie, don't cry, it's okay. You did the right thing telling the truth." She turned to me, her face hardening. "How could you, Harper? Stealing from your father is bad enough. But lying about it and making your little sister upset, that is cruel." "I am not lying." My voice rose. I was fighting panic. "She is making it up. Check her pockets. Check her room." "How dare you accuse your sister?" my father snapped. "Maya doesn't steal. Maya doesn't lie." That was the family truth. It wasn't based on evidence. It was a belief system. Maya was innocent. Therefore, Harper must be guilty. They didn't check Maya's room. They didn't ask her any more questions. The sight of her tears was all the proof they needed. Maya was upset, so I must have caused it. "Go to your room," my father ordered me. "You are grounded for a month. No phone, no friends, and you will pay back every cent out of your babysitting money." I looked at them. My mother stroking Maya's hair, my father glaring at me with disgust. Maya peeking out from under Mom's arm, dry-eyed now that the verdict was delivered. I felt something inside me go cold. It wasn't just anger. It was a horrifying realization that I was unsafe in my own home. Truth had no value here. Logic had no home here. I went to my room. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. Crying was Maya's weapon, and it didn't work for me anyway. Later that night, I heard Maya come up the stairs. I heard her go into her room and close the door. A few minutes later, I heard the distinct sound of her plastic piggy bank being shaken. It was a heavy, rattling sound. I knew then that she had taken the money. Maybe she wanted to buy something. Maybe she just wanted the thrill of it. It didn't matter why. What mattered was that she knew she could do it and I would pay the price. I paid my father the $60 the next day. He took it without looking at me. He never apologized. Even weeks later, when the tension had faded, nobody mentioned it. It was a turning point. Before the missing money, I thought if I just worked hard enough, they would love me right. After the money, I realized their love was conditional on my accepting the role of the villain. I stopped trying to defend myself after that. When something broke and they looked at me, I just shrugged. When Maya told a lie about me, I didn't argue. What was the point? They had already decided who I was. I was the difficult one. I was the jealous older sister. I was the liar. And Maya, she learned that her tears were magic coins she could spend to get out of anything. She learned that no matter what she did, I would be the human shield that protected her from consequences. It was a terrible lesson for both of us. It made me hard, and it made her reckless. We were both being ruined, just in different ways. By the time I was 20, I was living at home but trying to save money to move out. I was working 2 part-time jobs while going to community college. My proudest possession was my car. It was a 10-year-old Honda Civic. It had a dent in the rear bumper, and the air conditioning only worked on the highway, but it was mine. I had saved for 2 years to buy it with cash. I paid for my own insurance. I paid for my own gas. That car represented freedom. It was the only thing in my life that my parents had no control over. Maya was 15 then. She had just gotten her learner's permit. My parents had 2 cars, but they were always busy when Maya wanted to practice driving. My father had a new truck he didn't want scratched. My mother was always too tired after work. So the pressure fell on me. "Take your sister out for a drive, Harper," Mom would say on a Saturday morning. "She needs practice." "I have to study for finals, Mom. Can't you take her?" "Don't be selfish," she would reply. "Help your sister, it's just an hour." If I said no, the mood in the house would sour for days. Maya would pout. Mom would slam cupboard doors. So I usually gave in. I let Maya drive my precious car around empty parking lots, my stomach in knots the whole time. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, I was at my retail job. My phone rang in the break room. It was Maya. "Harper," her voice was high and panicky. "What is it? I'm at work. I need you to come pick me up. I had an accident." My heart stopped. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm fine," she cried. "But the car, I think it's bad." "What car, Maya?" I asked, a sick feeling rising in my throat. My keys were in my locker. "My car was in the employee lot." "Yours," she sobbed. "I took it. Mom said it was okay. I just wanted to go to the mall." She had taken my car without asking me. In the rain, on a learner's permit, I left work. My manager was furious, but I didn't care. I borrowed a coworker's car and drove to the location Maya gave me. It was an intersection near the mall. There were 2 police cars with lights flashing. I saw my Honda. The entire front end was smashed in. The hood was crumpled up like paper. Steam was rising from the engine. It was totaled, there was no doubt. Maya was sitting on the curb, wrapped in a blanket a paramedic had given her. She wasn't hurt. Not a scratch on her, but she was wailing dramatically. My mother was already there, rubbing Maya's back and cooing at her. I walked past them to look at my car. My freedom, my hard work. Gone in an afternoon because Maya wanted to go to the mall. I felt a rage so deep it made my hands shake. I walked over to the curb. Maya saw me and cried louder. "I'm so sorry, Harper." The road was slippery. The other car came out of nowhere. My mother looked up at me. Her face was streaked with tears, but they were tears for Maya's fright, not my loss. "Thank God she's alive," Mom said. "It could have been so much worse." "It's just a car, Harper. Metal can be replaced." "Just a car." "She doesn't have a license, Mom," I said. My voice sounded strange, very low and flat. "Why did you let her take my keys?" My mother's expression shifted instantly from relief to defensiveness. "Well, she needed to go to the mall. You were at work. I didn't think you would mind. You weren't using it." "It's my car. I pay for it. You had no right." "Stop it, Harper," Mom snapped. "Look at your sister. She is traumatized. Now is not the time to talk about money. You should be grateful she isn't dead." "She wrecked my car," I yelled. It was the first time in years I had raised my voice. "She stole my car and wrecked it," Maya wailed. "See, she hates me. She only cares about her stupid car." My mother stood up and got in my face. "How dare you yell at her right now? You are being heartless. If you had been a better sister and taken her driving more often, maybe she would have been better prepared. This is your fault as much as hers. You should have reminded her to be careful." I stared at my mother. The words didn't even make sense. Maya steals my car, crashes it, and somehow, it's my fault because I didn't remind her to be careful. It was absurdist theater. It was insanity. I looked at Maya, still performing her grief on the curb. I looked at my mother, her face full of righteous indignation on Maya's behalf. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was a quiet, permanent break. I realized with crystal clarity that it would never end. Maya would be 50 years old, burning down a house, and my mother would be standing there blaming me for buying the matches. I would forever be the sponge that absorbed Maya's consequences. I was done. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't yell. I just turned around and walked away. "Where are you going?" my mother called after me. "We need a ride home." I kept walking. I walked back to my coworker's car. I drove back to work. I finished my shift. I didn't have a car anymore. The insurance check went to pay off the small loan I still had on it. I got nothing. I was back to zero. But as I rode the bus home that night, I didn't feel sad. I felt cold, and I felt clarity. The car incident was the final straw. It was the moment I knew I had to get out. Not just out of the house, but out of the family system entirely. If I stayed, they would consume me completely. They would take everything I built and smash it, and then blame me for the mess. I had to escape. The escape had to be planned carefully. If they knew I was leaving, they would try to stop me. Not because they loved me and wanted me around, but because they needed me. Who would they blame if I wasn't there? Who would do the laundry and pay for the mistakes? I needed them to need me to run their dysfunctional machine. For 3 months after the car crash, I played the role perfectly. I was quiet. I took the bus to work and school. I didn't complain about the loss of my car. I did my chores. I listened when Mom vented about her day. I stayed out of Maya's way. They thought I had accepted my punishment. They thought things were back to normal. But in secret, I was preparing. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one my parents didn't use. Every spare dollar I earned went into that account. I stopped buying coffee. I ate ramen noodles. I saved with desperation. I started looking for roommates online. I found 2 girls looking for a third in a cheap apartment near the college. It was small, and the neighborhood wasn't great, but it was affordable. I signed the lease without telling anyone. Slowly, I started moving my things out. I couldn't walk out with suitcases. That would trigger an explosion. So I moved out one backpack at a time. Every morning when I left for school, my backpack was stuffed not just with books, but with clothes. I would take them to the new apartment and drop them off. I moved my winter coat in July so they wouldn't notice it missing. I moved my books, my few keepsakes, my shoes. My room at home was getting emptier, but it was gradual enough that they didn't notice. They never really looked in my room anyway. It was just the space where the service staff slept. Finally, the day came. It was a Saturday. My parents were out grocery shopping. Maya was at a friend's house. I packed the last of my things into 2 garbage bags, my bedding, my toiletries, my alarm clock. I didn't leave a dramatic letter. I didn't want the final word. I just wanted peace. I wrote a simple note on a piece of notebook paper and left it on the kitchen counter. "Mom and Dad, I have moved out. I am safe. Do not worry about me." Harper, I left my house key next to the note. I called a taxi, loaded my garbage bags, and didn't look back as the car drove away. When I got to my new apartment, my room was just a mattress on the floor and piles of clothes. But the air tasted different there. It tasted like mine. The fallout was immediate, but it didn't happen to my face. It happened over the phone and online. My mother called me 20 times that first night. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail started out angry, demanding to know where I was. Then they turned weepy, asking how I could abandon them. Then they turned vicious, accusing me of being an ungrateful child after everything they had done for me. I listened to them once, then deleted them. I sent one text message, "I am fine, I need space, please respect that." They didn't respect it. A week later, the online assault began. Maya was the general of this army. She started posting vague, emotional status updates on social media. "Can't believe someone you love could just walk away without a word. Feeling so abandoned right now. Family is supposed to stick together." She never used my name. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who she meant. Then came the comments from aunts, uncles, and cousins. People I had known my whole life. People who had watched me raise Maya while my parents worked. "Stay strong, sweetie. Some people are just selfish." "Aunt Sarah, we are here for you, Maya. We won't leave you." "Cousin Bate, disgusting behavior. You are better off without that kind of negativity." Uncle Bob, they believed her instantly. Nobody called me to ask my side of the story. Nobody asked, "Harper, why did you leave?" They just saw Maya's virtual tears and assumed I was the monster. I became the villain in a story I didn't even know was being written. It hurt. It hurt terribly to see people I loved turn against me based on half-truths and manipulation. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to write long paragraphs explaining the years of emotional neglect, the stolen money, the wrecked car, the constant blame. But I knew it wouldn't matter. They had their narrative. Maya was the victim, Mom and Dad were the suffering saints, and I was the cold-hearted traitor who ran off. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I stayed silent. I unfollowed them all. I blocked the ones who sent nasty messages. I retreated into my new life. It was lonely. My roommates were nice, but they had their own lives. I spent a lot of nights eating cereal for dinner and staring at the wall, wondering if I had made a mistake. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I should have stayed and tried harder. But then I would remember the sight of my crushed car and my mother's face telling me it was my fault. And I knew I had to stay away. I had escaped the burning house. But I was standing outside alone, watching the smoke, realizing I had no one left but myself. It was the beginning of 13 years of silence. 13 years of building a life from scratch, brick by painful brick. After I left, the silence was the loudest thing in my life. For the first few months, I woke up every day expecting to hear my mother yelling or Maya crying. But there was only the sound of traffic outside my cheap apartment window. I was free, but I was empty. I had spent 21 years being Harper the helper. I didn't know who Harper was when she wasn't helping someone else. I went to work. I went to class. I came home. I stared at the ceiling. I needed something to fill the time. I needed something that made sense. I started baking. It started by accident. One rainy Sunday, I was feeling particularly lonely. I missed the smell of a full house, even if that house was toxic. So I bought a bag of flour, some sugar, and a stick of butter. I made cookies. I followed the recipe exactly. 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour. Bake at 350 degrees for 12 minutes. The result was perfect. The cookies were golden brown. They were sweet. They were exactly what the recipe said they would be. It was a revelation. In my family, I could do everything right. I could follow all the rules and still get yelled at. The outcome never matched the effort. But with baking, if I followed the rules, I got the right result. It was fair. It was predictable. It was safe. I started baking every night. Cookies, muffins, breads. My roommates loved it. They started bringing friends over to eat my leftovers. For the first time, people were smiling at me not because they wanted a favor, but because I had made something good. "You should sell these," one of my roommates said. "Seriously, Harper. These are better than the bakery down the street." I laughed it off at first, but the idea stuck. I dropped out of community college. I know that sounds reckless, but I realized I was only studying accounting because my father said it was safe. I didn't want safe. I wanted to build something of my own. I got a job at a commercial bakery. I started at the bottom, washing mixing bowls that were bigger than me. I scrubbed floors. I carried 50-pound sacks of flour. I didn't complain. Compared to the emotional labor of my family, physical labor was easy. My back hurt, but my mind was clear. I learned the trade. I learned how to scale recipes. I learned about profit margins. I saved every penny. I didn't date. I didn't go on vacations. I worked. 3 years after I left home, I started my own business. I called it Harper's Oven. I didn't have a storefront. I couldn't afford one. I rented a commercial kitchen space from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. because it was cheaper. I baked all night. In the morning, I loaded my car, a used van I had bought, and delivered fresh pastries to coffee shops and offices. Those nights were long. It was just me, the hum of the ovens, and the smell of yeast. I would knead dough for hours. Punching the dough down felt good. It felt like I was punching back at the years of silence. I remember one night specifically. It was 3 a.m. I was exhausted. I had a huge order for a corporate event due at 7 a.m. I burned a tray of croissants. In the past, if I made a mistake, I would panic. I would hear my mother's voice calling me useless. I looked at the burnt croissants. I didn't panic. I just threw them in the trash. I wiped the pan. I started a new batch. "I can fix this," I said out loud to the empty room. "I made the mistake and I can fix it." It was a small moment, but it felt huge. I was in control. My business grew. The coffee shops wanted more. I got contracts with 3 local hotels. I couldn't do it alone anymore. I hired my first employee, a woman named Alina. She was in her 50s, a tough woman who had raised 4 kids on her own. She didn't treat me like a kid. She treated me like a boss. One day, we were packaging orders. "You work too hard," Alina said, tying a ribbon on a box. "You never go home." "I have to make sure it's perfect," I said. "It is perfect," she said firmly. "You built a good thing here, Harper. You can rest for a minute." Hearing that from her, an older woman, a mother figure, made my throat tight. It was the approval I had chased my entire childhood. And I got it not by sacrificing myself, but by working hard for myself. By the time 10 years had passed, Harper's Oven was a real brand. I had a storefront. I had 15 employees. I had a manager who handled the daily stress. I had money in the bank. Real money, not just survival money. But the most important thing I had built wasn't the business. It was my spine. I had learned that I was capable. I had learned that I didn't need to be a victim. I still thought about my family. Sometimes, late at night, I would look them up online. I saw photos of Maya. She was still living with my parents. She had gone through a string of short-term jobs. She posted a lot of selfies with captions about haters and bad vibes. She looked the same, pretty, pouting, demanding attention. My parents looked older. My father looked tired. My mother looked pinched. They were stuck in the same cycle. They were still playing the same roles. Maya was the princess and they were the servants. I felt a strange emotion. It wasn't anger anymore. It was pity. They were trapped in a prison of their own making. I was the only one who had escaped. Work made sense to me. Inputs led to outputs. Effort led to reward. People were harder, but I was learning. I had friends now. Real friends who didn't ask for money or favors. We went to dinner. We laughed. If I said no to a plan, they didn't get mad. They just said, okay, maybe next time. It was a simple, quiet revelation. Love isn't supposed to hurt. Relationships aren't supposed to be transactions. I was 33 years old. I was a business owner. I was independent. And I was ready for the next step. I was ready to put down roots that they could never rip up. For 13 years, I rented. I moved 4 times. I never unpacked all my boxes. I never painted the walls. I lived like a guest in my own life. I think deep down, I was afraid. I was afraid that if I got too comfortable, someone would come and take it away. I was afraid to claim space. But after the business stabilized, I realized I had too much money sitting in my savings account. My accountant told me I needed to invest. Buy a house, Harper, he said. Stop paying someone else's mortgage. The thought terrified me. A house was permanent. A house was a statement, but I started looking. I looked at small condos first. Safe little boxes, but they didn't feel right. I had spent my life making myself small. I didn't want to live in a small box anymore. Then I saw the house on Elm Street. It was a 2-story colonial. It had a big porch. It had a garden that was overgrown but beautiful. And it had a kitchen. A massive, sun-drenched kitchen with an island in the middle. I walked into that kitchen and I felt it. I felt the air leave my lungs. This was it. This was the place where I would bake cookies for fun, not just for work. This was the place where I would host Thanksgiving dinners for my chosen family. It was expensive. It was at the very top of my budget. The old Harper would have run away. The old Harper would have said, "That's too nice for you, you don't deserve that." But the new Harper looked at the price tag and did the math. I could afford it. I had earned it. I put in an offer. It was a stressful month. There were inspections, counteroffers, paperwork. I did it all alone. I sat in the bank offices and signed my name 100 times. Harper Reed, Harper Reed. On the day of the closing, the title officer handed me a heavy set of keys. "Congratulations," she said. "It's all yours." I drove to the house. It was empty. The previous owners had moved out days ago. I unlocked the front door. The sound of the deadbolt clicking open was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I walked inside. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors. I walked through the living room, the dining room, the kitchen. I went upstairs. There were 4 bedrooms. The master bedroom was huge. It had a bay window that looked out over the street. It had its own bathroom with a soaking tub. I stood in the middle of the room. I thought about the bedroom I had grown up in, the one my mother could enter at any time, the one where I had no privacy. "This is mine," I whispered. I didn't have furniture yet. The movers were coming the next day. I had a folding chair, a sleeping bag, and a box of leftover pastries from the bakery. That night, I sat on the folding chair in the middle of my empty living room. I ate a croissant. I watched the sun go down through the big windows. I felt a peace I had never known. It wasn't just quiet, it was stillness. There was no tension in the air. There was no expectation that I needed to be doing something for someone else. I was safe. I was the owner. If anyone wanted to come in here, they had to knock. If I didn't want to let them in, I didn't have to. I slept on the floor that night. The sleeping bag was hard, but I slept deeply. I didn't dream about my family. I dreamed about planting flowers in the garden. The next morning, I woke up with the sun. I felt energized. I had a whole day of unpacking ahead of me. I was going to paint the walls blue. I was going to buy a big, soft rug. I was making coffee on a camping stove in the kitchen when I heard a car door slam outside. It was early, 8 a.m. I wasn't expecting the movers until noon. I walked to the front window and looked out. My blood ran cold. There was a gray sedan in my driveway. I recognized it immediately. It was my father's car. My mother was getting out of the passenger side. She looked exactly the same, just grayer. She was wearing a determined expression. Then the back door opened. Maya stepped out. She was 30 years old now, but she was dressed like a teenager, leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. She was looking at the house with wide, hungry eyes. She pointed at the second floor. She said something to my mother, and they both nodded. Then they went to the trunk. My father got out and popped the lid. They started pulling out suitcases. Big, heavy travel suitcases. 3 of them, then a box. Then a garment bag. I stood frozen behind the curtain. My heart was hammering against my ribs. How did they know? How did they find me? I realized then social media. I hadn't posted, but my real estate agent had. She had posted a picture of me holding the sold sign yesterday. She had tagged me. Even though we weren't friends, my profile was visible enough for them to see the tag if they were stalking me. And they were always stalking me. They saw the house. They saw the size of it. They saw the success. And like sharks smelling blood in the water, they came. I watched them walk up the driveway. My mother led the way. She didn't look like a mother visiting her daughter after 13 years. She looked like a general marching into conquered territory. They walked up the steps to my front porch. They didn't ring the doorbell. The doorknob turned. I had locked it. Thank God I had locked it. The knob rattled aggressively. Then a fist pounded on the wood. Harper, my mother's voice, muffled but sharp. Harper, open the door, we know you're in there. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking. The old instinct, the instinct to run, to hide, to apologize, flared up. I wanted to open the door and explain. I wanted to beg them to leave. But then I looked around my empty living room. I looked at the keys on the counter. I had paid for this house. I had worked 18-hour days for this house. I had scrubbed floors and burned my hands on ovens for this house. They hadn't paid a dime. They hadn't called me on my birthday. They hadn't asked if I was alive for 13 years. The shaking in my hands stopped. A cold, hard resolve settled in my stomach. I wasn't the 16-year-old girl who paid for a crime she didn't commit. I was the CEO of Harper's Oven. I was a homeowner, and this was my property. I walked to the door. I didn't open it. I just unlocked the deadbolt and opened it 3 inches, keeping my foot firmly behind it. My mother's face was right there. She looked shocked that the door was blocked. Harper, she said, pushing against the wood. Let us in, it's freezing out here. Hello, Mother, I said. My voice was calm. It surprised me. Don't hello, Mother, me, she snapped. We've been driving for 4 hours. Open the door. Maya needs to use the bathroom. Maya popped her head over Mom's shoulder. She smiled. It was a bright, fake smile. Hi, Harper, wow, big house. I call the master bedroom. And there it was, the hook, the entitlement, the absolute certainty that what was mine was actually theirs. I looked at them. I didn't smile back. You can't come in, I said. The silence that followed my words was heavy. My mother blinked. She looked at me like I had spoken in a foreign language. Excuse me, she said. You cannot come in, I repeated. I didn't invite you. I am not ready for guests. Guests, my mother laughed, a harsh barking sound. We are not guests. We are your family. We are moving in. I looked past her at the suitcases on the porch. Moving in? Yes, she said, pushing harder on the door. I braced my shoulder against it. Your father lost his job last month. We are losing the house. We have nowhere else to go, and we saw that you bought this mansion. It has plenty of room, so we are moving in. Maya gets the big room upstairs. We'll take the guest room. You can adjust. You can adjust. The phrase from my childhood, the phrase that meant Harper will suffer so Maya can be comfortable. No, I said. My mother's face turned red. What do you mean no? We are your parents. We raised you. You owe us. I owe you nothing, I said clearly. You cut me off. You ignored me for 13 years. You smeared my name to the whole family. You don't get to show up now because you need something. Maya pushed forward. The fake smile was gone. Her face was twisted and ugly. You are so selfish, she screamed. You always were. You have this huge house all to yourself, and you're going to let your little sister be homeless. You're a monster. I'm not homeless, Maya. You are 30 years old. Get a job. I have anxiety, she shrieked. I can't work. You know that? That's not my problem, I said. My father walked up the steps then. He looked angry. Harper, open this door right now. I am your father and I am telling you to let us in. I looked at him. I remembered him taking my babysitting money. I remembered him blaming me for the car. Get off my porch, I said. Or what? He challenged. You're going to call the cops on your own family. I reached into my back pocket. I had prepared for this. Not specifically for them, but for anyone who tried to take what was mine. I was a business owner. I knew about liability. I knew about property rights. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a lease. It was a copy of the deed and a printed trespassing notice I had downloaded and filled out just in case. Actually, yes, I said. This is private property. I am the sole owner. You are trespassing. I held up the paper. This is a legal notice. If you do not remove yourself and your belongings from my property in 5 minutes, I will call the police and have you removed. I have cameras. I pointed to the small black camera mounted above the door. I had installed it yesterday. They looked up. Their faces fell. They realized this wasn't an emotional argument they could win with guilt. This was a legal situation. You wouldn't, my mother hissed. What will the neighbors think? I don't care what the neighbors think, I said. I care about my peace. You have 5 minutes. I slammed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I locked the handle. Then I leaned my back against the door and slid down to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. I was terrified, but I was also proud. I listened. I heard them arguing outside. She's bluffing, my father said. She's not, my mother said. Her voice sounded scared. Did you see her eyes? She's different. I want to go in, Maya whined. I'm cold. I want to see the room. Shut up, Maya, my father yelled. That was new. They never yelled at Maya. I waited. I watched the time on my phone. 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I pulled up the number for the police non-emergency line, my thumb hovering over the call button. I wasn't bluffing. I would do it. At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, I heard the heavy sound of suitcase wheels rolling on wood. I stood up and looked through the peephole. They were retreating. My father was dragging the bags down the stairs, looking defeated. My mother was walking stiffly, not looking back. Maya was trailing behind, crying loudly, looking back at the house with pure hatred. They got into the car. They sat there for a moment. Then, the engine started. They backed out of the driveway and drove away. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 13 years. I walked into the kitchen. I poured myself a cup of coffee. My hands were steady again. I had done it. I had faced the monsters under my bed, and I realized they weren't monsters. They were just sad, small people who only had power over me if I gave it to them. I didn't give it to them. I sat at my kitchen island. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of me. I knew this wasn't over. They would talk. They would post online. They would send flying monkeys, the aunts and cousins, to attack me. But I was ready. I had built a fortress, both in this house and in my mind. They could bang on the walls all they wanted, but they were never, ever getting inside again. When the tail lights of my father's car disappeared around the corner, I expected to feel guilty. That is what I had been trained to feel. I expected to hear a voice in my head saying, "You are a bad daughter, you are cruel." But I didn't hear that voice. I just heard the refrigerator humming. I felt the solid wood of the floor beneath my feet. I felt safe. However, I knew the war wasn't over. It was just moving to a new battlefield. The digital assault began 3 hours later. I was unpacking my kitchen boxes. I was putting my plates in the cupboard. My phone started buzzing on the counter. It buzzed once, then twice. Then it didn't stop. It was vibrating so hard it was moving across the marble surface. I picked it up. I had 40 notifications. Maya had gone to work. She posted a photo of herself crying in the backseat of the car. Her mascara was running. The caption was long and dramatic. I have never felt so betrayed in my life. We have nowhere to go. My own sister, who is rich and successful, just slammed the door in our faces. She left our parents on the street. She has a mansion with empty rooms, but she won't help her own flesh and blood. I am shaking. I don't know what we are going to do. Please pray for us. She didn't mention that I had offered to help them find a shelter. She didn't mention the 13 years of silence. She didn't mention the trespassing. She just painted a picture. Harper the monster, Maya the victim. Then came the messages from the relatives. These were the flying monkeys, the people the narcissist sends to do their dirty work. My Aunt Linda, who hadn't sent me a birthday card since I was 12, sent a text. Harper, I saw Maya's post. I am disgusted. How could you do this to your mother? Call me immediately. My cousin Steve sent a Facebook message. You think you're better than everyone because you have money now, you're trash. Family helps family. My mother left a voicemail. She was crying. Harper, please, we are at a motel. It's dirty. Your father is depressed. Just let us stay for a week. We promise we won't bother you. I sat on a stool in my kitchen. I looked at the phone. The old Harper would have responded to every single message. I would have typed out long paragraphs explaining my side. I would have sent screenshots of the deed. I would have tried to prove I was a good person. But I realized something. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a villain. It is easier to blame the rich sister than to ask why the parents have no savings after 40 years of working. It is easier to hate me than to hold Maya accountable for being 30 years old and jobless. I didn't reply to the texts. I didn't reply to the comments. Instead, I went to my laptop. I opened a blank document. I wrote a contract. It wasn't a legal contract exactly. It was a boundary contract. I typed it out slowly. I kept it simple. To Mom, Dad, Maya from Harper subject. Moving forward, I am writing this to set clear rules. If you want to have any contact with me, you must follow these rules. There are no exceptions. 1. Housing. You will never live in my house. Do not ask again. If you show up at my property uninvited, I will call the police again. 2. Money. I will not give you money. I will not pay your debts. 3. Communication. You are blocked on my phone. You can only contact me via email. I will check my email once a week on Sundays. If you send abusive messages, I will block your email too. 4. The truth. If I see one more lie about me on social media, I will hire a lawyer and sue you for defamation. I have the money to do it. Delete the posts now. Harper. I hit send. I expected an explosion. And I got one. My email inbox flooded with rage. My father replied in all capital letters calling me an ungrateful brat. Maya sent an email saying I was dead to her. I didn't read them all. I scanned them for threats, saw none, and closed the laptop. I stuck to my plan. I didn't answer. A week passed, then 2. The silence from my end forced them to face reality. They couldn't live on anger. They needed money. They needed a place to live. And since I wasn't going to save them, they had to save themselves. I heard through a friend that they rented a small 2-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town. It wasn't the luxury they wanted, but it was a roof. Then, the most shocking thing happened. I was at the grocery store 3 towns over about 2 months later. I turned the corner into the cereal aisle. I saw a woman stocking shelves. She was wearing a green uniform vest. She looked miserable. She was slamming the boxes onto the shelf. It was Maya. I froze. I watched her for a moment. She looked tired. Her hair wasn't done. She wasn't wearing makeup. She was working. She saw me. Her eyes went wide. She looked at my cart, full of fresh food. She looked at my nice coat. I expected her to scream. I expected a scene, but she didn't scream. She looked ashamed. She looked down at the floor and turned her back to me. I realized then that my cruelty had actually been the only thing that helped her. As long as I was the safety net, she never had to walk. By cutting the net, she hit the ground. And when she hit the ground, she finally stood up. I didn't say hello. I turned my cart around and walked away. 6 months after the incident on the porch, I received an email from my mother. Subject, coffee, Harper. I deleted the posts. Maya is working. Dad found a part-time job. We are managing. I would like to see you. Just for coffee. No asking for things, just to talk. Mom. I waited 3 days to answer. I thought about it carefully. Did I want to see her? I decided yes. But on my terms, I replied. I will meet you at the Starbucks on Main Street. Tuesday at 10 a.m. You come alone. If you bring Dad or Maya, I leave. If you ask for money, I leave. 30 minutes. I arrived early. I sat near the door so I could escape if I needed to. My mother walked in. She looked smaller than I remembered. She ordered her own coffee and paid for it. That was a first. She sat down opposite me. She didn't hug me. She knew better. You look good, Harper, she said. I am good, I said. How are things? Hard, she admitted. Maya hates her job. Your father hates the apartment. It is very small. She paused, waiting for me to offer help. Waiting for me to say, oh, let me write you a check. I took a sip of my coffee. That sounds difficult, I said. I offered nothing. She sighed. She looked at my hands resting on the table. She looked at the diamond ring I had bought for myself on my right hand. You really aren't going to help us, are you? She asked softly. Not even a little bit. Mom, I said, looking her in the eye. I am helping you. I am letting you learn how to be adults. I am letting Maya learn that actions have consequences. That is the best help I can give. She looked angry for a second, the old flash of resentment. But then it faded into resignation. She knew she had no power here. I held all the cards. You've changed, she said. You used to be so sweet. I used to be a doormat, I corrected. Now I'm a person. We finished our coffee. We talked about the weather. We talked about a movie she saw. It was shallow. It was polite. It wasn't the warm mother-daughter connection you see in movies, but it was real. When the 30 minutes were up, I stood. I have to go to work, I said. Will I see you again? She asked. There was a desperate note in her voice. Maybe, I said. Send me an email next month, we'll see. I walked out to my car. I didn't cry. I felt light. I realized that I didn't hate them anymore. And I didn't need them to love me. I had established the boundary. It was an electric fence. They could look at me, they could talk to me, but if they tried to cross the line, they would get shocked. And they knew it. It has been 2 years since I bought the house. The house is different now. It isn't just a building I own, it is a home I live in. I painted the kitchen a soft yellow. It catches the morning light. I bought a huge oak dining table that seats 12 people. When I first bought the table, I wondered if it was a mistake. I had no family to fill the seats. I thought it would just be a reminder of what I didn't have. But I was wrong. Last Thursday was Thanksgiving. In the past, Thanksgiving was a day of terror. It meant cooking for 10 hours while my mother criticized the turkey. It meant watching Maya get the biggest slice of pie while I did the dishes. It meant headaches and shouting. This Thanksgiving was different. I woke up at 8 a.m. I didn't rush. I put on music, jazz, loud and smooth. I baked 3 kinds of pie because I wanted to, not because I had to. At 2 p.m. the doorbell rang. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't Maya. It was Alina, my manager from the bakery, and her husband. Then came Sarah, a friend I met at a yoga class. Then came Marcus, my neighbor who helped me fix my fence. Then came 3 of my former roommates from my early 20s. People came in carrying bottles of wine, side dishes, and flowers. They hugged me. Real hugs. The kind where people squeeze you because they are happy to see you. Harper, the house smells amazing, Alina said, kissing my cheek. I made the stuffing spicy, just like you like it, I told her. We sat around the big oak table. There was no head of the table. There was no hierarchy. There was no golden child and scapegoat. There were just friends. We ate. We laughed so hard that Marcus spilled his wine. Nobody yelled at him. We just grabbed a towel and wiped it up, laughing even harder. I looked around the table. I saw faces of different ages, different backgrounds. None of them shared my DNA, but they shared my values. They showed up. They said thank you. They listened when I spoke. This was my family. I had built it just like I built my business. I chose them and they chose me. My biological family is still around. I didn't erase them from the earth, just from my daily life. I see them 4 times a year. We meet at a restaurant. I pay for the meal. It is my charity to them. Maya is still working at the grocery store. She has been promoted to shift supervisor. She hates it, and she complains the whole lunch, but she does it. She pays her own rent. She has stopped posting about me online because she knows I check. She treats me with a careful, distant respect. She knows I am the only one who sees her clearly. My parents are aging. They are tired. They still make little comments, trying to make me feel guilty. It must be nice to have such a big house all to yourself, my mother will say, stabbing her salad. It is, I reply with a smile. It is very nice. I don't explain, I don't defend, I just agree. It takes the wind out of their sails. They can't fight someone who won't fight back. After the Thanksgiving guests left, I was alone in the quiet house. The dishwasher was humming, a sound I used to associate with servitude, but now associate with a job well done. I walked to the front door to lock up for the night. I touched the deadbolt. It was cold metal. I thought about the night 13 years ago when I walked out with garbage bags. I thought about the night 2 years ago when I stood behind this door and told my mother no. People say that forgiveness is the goal. They say you have to forgive your family to be whole. I don't know if I have forgiven them. I don't think they deserve forgiveness because they never asked for it. They never said sorry. But I have found something better than forgiveness. I have found indifference. I don't wish them harm. I don't want them to suffer. I just don't need them. I realized that the victim I used to be is gone. She died the day she walked away from the car crash. The woman who exists now is a survivor. She is a builder. I turned the lock. Click. It is a solid sound, a heavy sound. It signifies that the bad things are outside and the good things are inside. I turned off the porch light. I walked up the stairs to my big, beautiful master bedroom. I put on my pajamas. I climbed into my soft bed. I closed my eyes. The house was silent. My heart was quiet. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just Harper, and that was finally enough.